by their silence on matters that aren't personal to them. So for example, if you require them to give you this legal release in exchange for severance, say the company has got 1099 people that really should be employees. Is an employee, but you tell them you can't go to the federal, Department of.
You're right, you cannot release, you cannot force them to release from something that they're legitimately, as either a class or as that they don't have the ability to release. So the 1099 folks have their own rights, and so they can have that conversation with those people, and those people would bring that suit or go and make that complaint.
And say this is an employee,
Mhm.
and just out of spite would turn the employer into the feds.
Yeah.
Can you, promote
Generally
that?
not, generally not. There are certain things that you cannot stop them from doing.
It's encroaching on free speech, yeah.
I don't know if it's free speech. I'd have to look and see it. There's a specific exemption there, like collective bargaining, NLRB. There's certain things that you can't stop them from doing. So,
When terminating an employee for cause, I don't know if you're gonna get into that or not, but I just have a quick question. Regarding emails, when someone uses a company email and they're putting things in, they're bad mouthing the owners or their family or other employees, and they're having flirtatious relationships with some of your customers, that treads on a fine line. Where, what can be done about that, and is it legal, or does an employer have a right to monitor all of the emails that go in and out of a company email account?
yes. So your policy manual should address those kinds of issues, that you can only use company email for company purposes, and that all of it is monitored, and no privacy should be assumed because it is going through your servers or your accounts.
Okay, that's not in writing, and that's not in the
It should be in
employee
your-
manual. If it's not, can we still monitor all that?
It's company property.
Okay.
So in general, yes, it's better if it's in writing.
Okay,
So, and then the bad mouthing piece, I think that there is a duty that the employee has to the company to act in its best interest, to be loyal to the company. And so those types of activities are going against that duty of loyalty. So when you say for cause, for cause has a lot of different elements and definitions. So how does it fit into this scenario? When you look at them applying for unemployment insurance, for example, the for cause becomes actually a very specific
right.
terminology. So those actions, do they fit into a dispute or an appeal with employment security that they can't get unemployment insurance because it was for cause? So understanding what your purpose is for using for cause versus at will, and making that argument and building the documentation so that you have that to support the for cause if you need it.
Well, I took the easy route on this one. I just told them I was restructuring and didn't need their position was gonna be eliminated.
Okay.
And then if they were gonna get into argumentative thing, I would just simply say, we've been monitoring emails for over a year.
Yeah.
So we're aware of what's going on.
But if that person goes and applies for unemployment insurance based on the
They'll
fact
get
that
it.
he was laid off,
Yeah, they'll
they would get it.
Yeah, they get it. She's
Yeah.
getting it.
Yeah, so if you felt strongly enough that you didn't want her to get it, you would wanna be careful about how you position
Right, but
that
I would see
information.
potential legal problems with this person, so
Yeah.
I would rather pay the unemployment
Then the litigation.
than go into litigation,
Yeah.
go into this long he said, she said
Yep.
kind of thing.
And that's where the release could be helpful, the severance and release could be helpful instead, as a tool, so.
But then they would still get their employment.
If you
Um,
contest it.
Well, you could contest it on the for cause,
Yeah, but if
But-
you did a severance and for cause,
yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
So, the question is, what's the
Yeah.
risk of this person going, because even now, you've let it kind of lay low, allow them to get their unemployment insurance with the assumption that they'll be happy with that instead of suing, but that doesn't mean they're not gonna come back and sue anyway, if there's something that
yeah, there's
triggers
nothing
it.
there to sue for.
Different problem entirely,
Yeah.
so, okay, I'll let Laura take on this.
So, really quick, because I know we all want to get out of here and sit in traffic probably, because Obama's driving around this morning. In case you didn't know, 9 o'clock-ish, supposedly it's all shutting down.
Well, we'll keep you here long enough.
The termination meeting is, as we saw, Jane just kind of threw up her arms, pulled her in, said, look, this isn't a fit, you're done. And that is not the best approach to do this. The termination meeting is a very serious meeting. It's really difficult for you to have to deliver the message. It's excruciatingly painful for them to have to listen to that message. And so you want to be really thoughtful and planning on how you're going to approach this, down to even where you're having that meeting at. Don't have it in your fishbowl conference room where everybody's walking by and, why is Sally and Jane? You know, and I don't even recommend you do it over your desk where there's paperwork. You know, go to a secluded area where you don't have work in front of you. Don't go to their office, because then they'll be like, but wait, I gotta do all this. So really think through all those details and have a nice, quiet space. Have your documentation already prepared. I would never recommend that you go in and say, look, you know, this isn't working out, you're coming in late to meetings, we can't be doing this anymore. Oh, by the way, I'll get you your separation agreement and the severance and release and all of that details to you later this week. You need to have all of that prepared. Now, obviously, if we're talking about something egregious where, you know, immediately they need to be escorted off, that's different. You know, if they suddenly, you catch them stealing money out of the till, yes, let's get them out, we'll get them their paperwork later. But when it's a situation we've got with Jane and Sally, where she's just decided through her arm, you know, what's another day or two for her to pull the paperwork together, pull Sally into a meeting and say, look, this isn't working out. And have your message prepared. Have your reasoning, your logic, say it clear, and stay on message. So if your message is, we're eliminating this position, we don't need this anymore, and unfortunately we're gonna have to let you go, today's your last day, then everything that you should say should be, we are eliminating this position, we don't need this anymore. And you'll sound like a broken record, and you'll feel like a broken record, and they're still gonna be defensive and fight back, and this, you can't do this, you totally do, you can't have this account without me. Well, we you know, as we assess the situation, we no longer need this position. If you start to backpedal and say, well, maybe we can think about it, or but you know you haven't been performing up to par, you suddenly brought performance in there, now you're not on message, you're opening yourself up. You know, if they say, well, what about Jane, or that's a bad example, we're talking about Jane, what about John? John hasn't ever come to work on time. This is about your position, you've gotta keep it focused and stay on message. I think that's what's most critical, and as soon as you start to waver, that's where you can really open up a lot of risk. And then anticipate their reactions. You're never gonna get it right, because everybody reacts in a very different way, but if you know you've got somebody who's volatile, then you need to be prepared for that volatility. You need to anticipate that their reaction will be very volatile and pound their fist on the desk. But you also have a lot of people that will just shut down and won't hear much of what you're saying. But you need to kind of prepare, how are you gonna react to that? If you haven't done a lot of terminations and you're looking at doing one that you think will be difficult, find a trusted confidant, an advisor, a consultant that you work with to role play it, to practice your message, because it is too important of a meeting to just walk in willy-nilly and say, look, this isn't working. You really wanna make sure you've got that message clear and you can communicate it effectively and stay on point. So, I know we've totally running out of time.
Comes to mind that to protect yourself, would it be appropriate to have two people from the company be in this meeting as opposed to one?
I think you're gonna get answers all over the board on that. I don't know that having a witness is necessary, certainly in an at-will employment environment. There are a lot of folks who like that, especially if you expect a violent type reaction, if you expect someone to go off the deep end, or if you're escorting them out, it's nice to have somebody that's not you dealing with that. But it's not necessary to have that second person there, in my experience.
And in small organizations, it's not always the best approach
Yeah.
either, because you'll have somebody who's not, it's not like the manager and the HR person sitting there where it makes sense. If the only person you would bring in for a witness is more of a peer, it creates a level of awkwardness and embarrassment for the individual being terminated, and it's just not best practice to create a more awkward environment than you already have.
I do also want to just point out on the severance piece is they need to have an opportunity to have it reviewed by legal counsel as well. Make sure you build that in. We need this back within a week, 2 weeks, I think it's 14 days. Some reasonable amount of time, so just keep that in mind. You can't say, you have to sign it now or you don't get it.